Dr. Bryony Onciul. I'm in the History Department at the University of Exeter, and I'm the Director of our new Masters, International Heritage Management and Consultancy. We offer this Masters as an MA programme, as an MRes. We also have the Postgraduate Certificate and the Postgraduate Diploma. So I'm here to tell you a little bit about our programme, but if you have any questions, please do post them to Facebook and we'll answer them towards the end. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself. I do a lot of work in Indigenous heritage, issues around decolonisation, and I've recently been working around climate change and coastal change with grants funded by the Arts and Humanities Research Council. At the university, I teach on the undergraduate programme in public history at levels 1, 2 and 3 in our undergraduate programme, and this Masters is kind of a following on from that kind of routine, but also obviously welcome to everybody. I sit as the chair of the University of Exeter's Heritage Strategy Group, and externally I'm also the chair of the UK Association of Critical Heritage Studies and sit on the International Executive Committee. So all of those kind of international expertise, international, national and local, are brought into this course and inform the teaching that we do, as well as the research, which obviously goes directly into what we teach as a research-intensive university. So I'm here today to talk a lot more about the details of the programme, and if you have any specific questions, do send them over and I'll try and answer them. So this Masters is got two main themes to it. It's coming from our research that we do on this campus. It's based at the Cornwall campus, University of Exeter, and here we have a strength in sustainability and renewable energies, in issues around climate change, and issues around historical justice and decolonisation. And this comes also from my own research and my colleagues. So there's two core themes around decolonising and the role of decolonisation and heritage, and also thinking about the future and climate change, coastal change and environmental change. So the Masters is unique in the sense that it really is focusing on the way the past helps to inform us today and think about the future and ideas around identity and culture on an international, national and local scale, and also because it has both the management aspect, which is very important, very practical, very good for careers, but it also has the consultancy, which recognises the changing field of heritage today and the different ways you might develop your career, and you might be represented in different bodies that might not necessarily be a traditional heritage employer, but you might have a heritage role as an advisor, as a consultant. So it speaks to those two things. One of the real strengths of the programme is the focus on praxis, the meeting point between theory and practice. That is really built into everything we do, that we think about, what is the theory behind what we're doing. We write some of that theory, the academics here develop those ideas, but we're also really engaged with practice. It's not just about thinking about heritage in the past, but actually how do we do this? How do you make change in the world through a passion for the past? So in that route, we have different elements on the course that are built in. So for each of the taught modules, we have 3 guest speakers as a minimum, and some of those will be international, some will be local. So you'll be hearing from professionals in the field, talking directly to you about their work, about their experiences. That's a real strength. We have field trips on every taught module, so you'll be going out to visit sites, both locally, nationally and internationally. And this is really valuable because you get to meet professionals in their workplace, you get to see things in action on the ground in situ, rather than just reading about it or discussing it in a classroom. And that's all included in the course fees. We also have an industry advisory group, and this is very important, again, to the employability of our graduates and to informing what we teach and why we teach it, and keeping everything cutting edge. We're at the cutting edge of research, but we also have to be at the cutting edge of practice, and that's what the industry advisory group's about. So we have members from National Trust, Historic England, World Heritage UK, that's our main UK heritage bodies. Survival International, because of that decolonising strand and ideas through the course that come through. Also in the consultancy role, we have the International Atkins, we have the national level Cotswold Archaeology, and then we also have Cornwall Museum Partnership and MECAL Consulting. So again, it's representing those different levels. So you'll always be engaging. We're attracting international students, and we want them to bring their knowledge and their experiences and feed in and bounce ideas around. And we all encourage you to travel out and visit different sites and engage with different kinds of ideas. And one of the core elements of this is our field course to Canada. In this coming year, it'll be to Canada. In future years, it might also go to New Zealand, or alternatively go to New Zealand or multi-sites in Europe. But for the coming year, it'll be to Canada, to Vancouver and North Vancouver Island. This is a compulsory module. It's included in your fees, apart from food, but all the flights and hotels and the activities. And it is not a holiday, it's not just a visit, it is really teaching in situ, and we're building relationships with heritage professionals on site. We'll be going to many different famous museums, key sites for different moments around colonialism, around post-colonialism, decolonisation, around Potlatch collections that have been repatriated, these kind of issues, current Indigenous issues, but also ideas around extraction, tourism, different kind of balancing difficult histories and addressing things like reconciliation. Loads and loads will be built into that field course, where we'll be travelling for 10 days around North Vancouver Island and Vancouver City, engaging with different kinds of heritage professionals, and thinking through really core foundational ideas that run through the course around why does the past matter, what do we do with it today, and how does it inform our future, and how can we use it differently, what does heritage do, thinking around that both theoretically and practically. So that's a really exciting element to the programme. The programme starts in the first term with 4 compulsory modules that are really there to set you up for the rest of the programme, where you will become more and more independent, following your own passions and roots through this. The programme is designed to attract people from a range of disciplines, a range of backgrounds. Some of you will really have expertise in some heritage areas because you've been working in the field. Others will be coming straight out with degrees and have expertise across a range of qualifications: history, English, archaeology, geography, classics, cultural studies. You might have even come from biology or the sciences and want to take what you know but look more at the cultural heritage aspects of it. The programme's very interested in heritage being holistic, so we're not separating culture and nature, which is kind of a classic approach to heritage, but looking at holistically. This is really important to many cultures around the world. They don't necessarily see this as distinct, separate, but as a holistic whole. And it's really important to the future of heritage. In current research, more and more work is being done about the overlap between culture and nature and not seeing these as distinct. So that all comes through the programme. So you start off with 4 compulsory modules, starting with critical heritage studies, theory and practice, which gives you your basic theory and background. Research methods, which is absolutely core to doing your dissertation and being able to negotiate as a consultant with people who do different kinds of research, who draw on different kinds of disciplines for that knowledge. You'll also do heritage, ethics, policy and law, and heritage management. So as you can see from those core modules, you've got a balance between very practical skills, very theoretical, and very research-based skills. This is ideal for you to go into the world of heritage management consultancy, but also if you get to the end of it and have a serious passion about research, to continue into a PhD. It's flexible in that sense. After Christmas, you get a choice of the modules that you choose to take. You choose 2 out of 4. So there's interpretation and narrative, sites of conflict, commemoration and memory. Those are 2 of your more, if you like, classic heritage modules. And then we also have heritage consultancy, global challenges, and heritage and environmental change. Those 2 are a little bit different. They're different in the sense that they are co-taught with other departments. So heritage consultancy and global challenges, if you were to select that one, you would be working alongside renewable energy engineering students on real world projects with real world clients, and you'd be bringing your heritage knowledge, your heritage skills as a consultant into that role to negotiate across disciplines and bring that angle into a report that would be fed back to a real world sponsor. So that's extremely exciting and quite a safe space to replicate a work experience, and really excellent for your CV and for building that kind of work if you want to go into that. Heritage and environmental change, it comes out of research that's done here on this campus by myself, by Caitlin De Silvi and others, and it's co-taught with a geography master's student, so that you'll be mixed in with geography masters. You'll of course be assessed as a heritage master's student, but this is really lovely, I think, for broadening your experiences, your interactions, your knowledge base, and learning how to negotiate across disciplines, how to defend your discipline and how to talk to others, which is absolutely key in any heritage role, because heritage is so multifaceted, so diverse and so holistic. You need to be able to listen to and talk with other disciplines and other expertise. And that one really looks at climate and coastal change and builds a lot on the work we've done in partnership with the National Trust. And that module is a little bit unique in the sense that a lot of it will be taught in the field, so there's a lot of field trips on that one. Sites of conflict, commemoration and memory, and interpretation and narrative will be taught through different kinds of master classes with lots of different experts looking at these kinds of classic heritage interpretations, heritage issues from many different angles, as well as a field trip on those. So those are your choices. You choose 2 of those, any mixture you want. And then you also have a choice of either doing a heritage placement or a heritage research project. The heritage placement is a month long, and it can be spread over the 2 terms, term 2 and term 3, which is our spring and summer terms. And I really strongly encourage students to do that, because it's a brilliant way to build relationships with professionals in the field, and that sets you up really well for future employment, building those networks. But there's also the research project, which can be done with an external or internal sponsor in that regard too, or on your own mini project. So those are quite exciting opportunities. You can do your heritage placement here in Cornwall, you can do it here in the UK, or you can do it internationally. We really encourage you to think about where you want to go with your career, what you want to do after, and what would be most valuable to you. It might feed into your dissertation. You might already have an idea about that, so you can build those together. We also have, obviously, people here who will offer placements as well, so there's that balance. You won't be left on your own to find a placement, but you do have the freedom to look and go where you want in anywhere in the world. We won't pay for you to travel to a placement overseas, but there is a small budget to cover local travel, so you shouldn't be put out of pocket on your placement. But that's a really valuable aspect of the Masters. So that kind of from Christmas to Easter is very optional, and you select what you want to do. And then after the Easter break, we go on our field course to Canada, which is quite intensive. Basically goes over 2 weeks, so it's 10 days in Vancouver and Vancouver Island, and that's a really intensive pulling together of everyone and coming back to these core issues that we started at the start of the course in theory and practice, critical heritage studies, and bringing that all together before you as students would go off and write your dissertations, which are your long extended piece of research with supervision, but that becomes much more in the summer term, you taking control of your own learning, your own writing and your own output. So for those students who are international students, if you wanted around the Easter time, April time, you might want to return to your home country and do your placement there, come back and join us in Canada. You don't have to come through the UK, you can join us there, and then return home to write your dissertation. So it's flexible in that sense, or of course you can be here in Cornwall with us, but we have that flexibility built in as we are keen to have international students and that kind of relationship. So that's kind of an overview of the different aspects of the programme. So if you have any questions, do send them in and I will try my best to answer them. Do we have any questions? I can tell you a little bit more about the field trip. So we've had a question in about what a bit more detail. Thank you for that question. So we've got, on the field course, we'll be starting in Vancouver City. So technically the field course starts on arrival in Vancouver. It's designed that way, so if you wanted to travel there earlier and have a little bit of holiday, you can. If you wanted to come from a different location because you're doing a placement overseas somewhere, you can also do that. So we start in Vancouver City. We have an agreement with the University of British Columbia, the Museum of Anthropology, which is an absolutely fabulous museum on their campus. We start there, meeting with their expertise and visiting their collections, and that's kind of a really good foundational place. The museum sits on unceded Indigenous land, which they discussed in the museum. They have phenomenal collections from First Nations in Canada, but also from cultures around the world. And we start in the city there just to get settled into Canada before we head off onto Vancouver Island. Now this, I can talk through the itinerary, but I have to say that of course this is not 100% guaranteed because we're still just mapping everything out. But the idea of the itinerary would go roughly along the lines of going across to Vancouver Island with a potential visit over to Gold River, which is right on the west coast. And there is a boat trip there where you can go out to Nuka Sound, one of the first points of contact, original contact between Europe and Indigenous peoples of Canada. It's a phenomenally beautiful inlet with forests that are still logged, so you have extraction in terms of logging, you have fisheries, and there's this working heritage boat that is also a tourist boat, which is still working, still delivering food to the fish farms, with heavy logging surrounding you in this incredibly important historic place. So that's one of the starting points to think about these different pressures on heritage interpretation, on culture. Then we'd be going up. I see there's another question in, that's great, thank you. I'll just finish this one. Then we'll be heading up north to some of the First Nations communities, to core museums where Potlatch collections. Potlatch is an Indigenous cultural ceremony that was banned under the Indian Act in Canada, that was then reinstated, but when it was banned, collection First Nations cultural materials taken and put to museums. 2 museums will visit, have 2 cultural centres, had those collections repatriated, and they're very important in terms of changing those relationships, those colonial relationships, and those relationships between museums, heritage communities, source communities, and how those stories are told. Again, absolutely stunning locations. It's an area where you have a lot of orca travelling through between the islands and Vancouver mainland. And we'll also be doing some nature watching, engaging in ecotourism, because it relates to those ideas around coastal change, climate change, sustainability, resource funding, but thinking about wildlife watching with a different lens on, thinking about it in terms of what does this mean when it's in a place where the communities see animals as ancestors? What does it mean when there are revenue for tourism? What does it mean when perhaps whales are also causing trouble with the fisheries and the logging? These kind of issues, how do we balance these? You'll see those working in situ. There's lots and lots of exciting elements that I probably don't have time to go through in great detail here, but there'll be real chances to taste, to engage, to eat the food, to see things and to actually do them, engage with cultural practices before we return back to the city, where we'll have meetings with heritage consultants and experts there, and networking events and different ways to engage in urban heritage and think about those challenges and the hidden histories in Vancouver City, which are multi-layered. You have Japanese internment during the war, you have a difficult history with Chinese immigrants and such like in the city, that how are those stories told, how they engage with, what about prohibition? These will be layered in and thought about through that field course. We're getting quite a few questions in now, so I might pause that there. There's lots more I could tell you, but I'll answer some of these other questions. So we've had a question from Emily. What work experience opportunities are there? So work experience opportunities, as I say, I really would encourage you to tailor them to what you want to do in the future. And at the minute you might not know for certain, but as you start to go through the course, you might think, actually, I'm really passionate about this. I was really inspired by the CEO we met. You might want to go and do a placement which is it a high-level museum? Maybe it's a National Trust site. It depends what you want to do with your career. Maybe you want to go and work in a consultancy firm. I would really support you and encourage you, and we have a team here, a placement team, that will support you getting those placements that fit what you want and what you need. That, I think, is really important. We'll also have placements set up as options that you can opt into, but I would really encourage you to do what you want to do. And throughout the course, I can sit down with you and talk with you along with our placement officers and placement team to decide that. But you can go anywhere in the world, anything to do with heritage. You write up an assignment that's a reflective piece, partly about exactly what you did and then what you've learned, relate that back to what we've learned on the course. So it's very flexible in that sense. There's a question from, I think also from Emily. What is it like living in Cornwall? I can't show you the view today, but it's absolutely beautiful and sunny today. It is quite warm down here in the summer terms, and it's quite rainy in the winter, but it's a much milder climate. The course is delivered on Penryn campus, which is a stunning modern campus on top of a hill in the town of Penryn. So we have from many of our buildings views right down to the sea, to the Foul Estuary. We can see the two castles of St Maur's and Pendennis. There's loads of historic sites. The whole of Penryn High Street is actually listed as a historical location that you'll be studying in. The new buildings that are all less than 10 years old and we're still building on campus, they're very modern, they're very sustainable, environmentally friendly, grass-topped roofs. But we sit within an old garden, an old house. It used to be the Sheriff of Cornwall. So we've got the first rhododendrons that ever came to the UK from the Himalayas and were then bred and went to Kew Garden. So we have heritage, both natural and cultural, right on site. It's a lovely place to live. Both on campus and in the towns of Penryn and Falmouth, being very coastal, really great beaches, surfing, a very nice, relaxed lifestyle. It is more rural here. We don't have big cities. Truro is our capital, so it is more rural in that sense, but we'll be doing lots of field trips around the county, up country, and also internationally. So you won't be stuck here if it doesn't quite suit you. In that sense, it's quite flexible. So we've got a few more questions. So what kind of careers might students go on to do? That again is quite flexible. We have both heritage management, where you might go into your more traditional, like National Trust, Historic England, English Heritage, UNESCO World Heritage UK. Those are on our Institute Advisory Group. So there's those kind of more heritage roles, as you would imagine. But also with the consultancy, there are many companies, NGOs, businesses that have roles for heritage consultants. So there might be someone like Atkins who does a lot of, changing, road building, things you might not think, why would they need heritage experts? Well, they do, because they have to take that into consideration. So there's roles for you to work both in charities and NGOs such as Survival International, amongst many others, but also in big business and being an advisor in these different roles. So it's quite flexible in that sense. And again, I would really encourage you to think about your module selection, your work placement, to tailor it into where you think you might want to go. So there's a question about, can you study part-time? Yes, you can. You can study part-time. That's an option for you. And if you want to see the breakdown of that, let us know, and it's probably best for me to email you so you can see exactly how that would roll out. But basically the credits are split across 2 years, and then you take them, so you can do that part-time. We have a question about logistics, scheduling, and flexibility for part-time students. So it's really important, I think, in this day and age when education is very expensive, for us to make it as viable as possible for you. So I am requesting that we try our best to deliver our teaching over 3 days a week. I can't guarantee it, but we are going to try and ensure that the teaching contact hours are clumped together, so you have more flexibility to do your own research, your own reading, your own preparation, but also to work. When you are working part-time on the course, of course you'd have a lot more time. So even for full-time students, we're trying to build that in so that it is it is sensible for you when you're studying, because I appreciate that is not easy. What will we be studying? So there's all the different modules. So you'll be studying really loads of things. With it being international, we'll be bringing lots of different case studies. A lot of this will be case study based, so you can get in depth with case studies from different locations around the world, addressing different issues. So issues around how do we understand the past? How do we communicate that? How do we look after it? What is carrying capacity? Whose story do we tell? Who has the right to tell that history? Who owns the past? These are core fundamental questions in any study of the past or its representations. Thinking about how do we do that? So from the ethics, the theory, to the practical, what does it actually mean to get the funds in to run a site? How many visitors can we have? What kind of marketing campaigns do we have? How do you write a grant application? So one of the things you'll be doing is learning how to write a grant application, which is very practical, whilst also thinking about really key issues around contested heritage, difficult history, conflict. Why are sites bombed why heritage sites bombed during wars? Why are they targeted? These kind of issues, the power and politics of the past today, what it means for us, the way we understand the past, how it informs what we do, what decisions we take in our daily life, and how we plan for the future. That's kind of the core themes that will come through all of this. I see we've only got 5 minutes left, or less than 5 minutes, so do send any final questions through. There's a question about, can you study online? At the minute, no. This is a face-to-face taught degree where you need to be here. A lot of the stuff you can do remotely, like your supervisions during dissertation, if you wanted to return home to wherever that is, work remotely, you can do that there. But the actual modules we want to teach you face-to-face, because I strongly believe in the value of sitting down together, meeting. I know we're doing this digitally, but being in the same room and learning together, and learning from your cohort, learning from your peers is really important, as well as learning from academics and from professionals in the field, and learning from doing, learning from going on site, but being face to face. So we don't offer this as a purely digital course at the moment. And it also speaks to some of the issues around indigeneity and some of the issues I'm interested in, the value of face-to-face, of being generous and talking with people and hosting people and eating together, and those values. And I hope you'll see that come through, particularly on the field course, where we will be spending a lot of time together and eating together, and that kind of building those relationships. I hope the cohort will come out really strongly bonded, and that will be your foundational network. You as students on the course will be your core network that will go into the world and be alumni and have those relationships. So although you may go off to many different career destinations, you'll always have those ties, and build that into current networks that we have here already on campus. So I think that's time, I'm afraid. I hope I've been able to answer some of your questions. If you have more, do email them through. I'm always happy to talk one-to-one. I can Skype with you, we can phone, I can email you, so do keep sending them through. Thank you very much for watching, and send me an email, I'll be happy to email you back. It's Bryony Onciul@exeter.ac.uk. Thank you.